Previously on Unknown.
Roman? I don't remember what happened after I stopped at that vending machine, but whatever happened, I woke up here.
Where's Morgan? Did you see Morgan?
I haven't seen Morgan in forever.
I'm tired of walking around out here. It's crazy Morgan died, too.
I can't believe it.
Full dead.
I mean, I only knew her a little while, but...
Like, not coming back. Dead.
Gone.
That's crazy. Okay, well, yeah, I'm getting pretty tired of this. I don't know. It's been like months since that door that let me in here vanished.
Can't believe you let that close on you.
Listen, I was looking for you.
Why?
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 Yeah, that's right, you want to live out in the woods.
It's not about wanting to live in the woods. It's about not falling for a horror movie cliche.
Okay, well, it's very cold, so I'm gonna... See like those red and like blue lights over there?
Should we approach it?
Sure.
Another cliche, man.
Oh my god. What are those things?
Well, that one kind of looks like me. He's walking towards us.
Okay, I think we lost them.
You think so?
Who the hell were those guys? They were creepy as hell.
Some fucking spooky fucking witchcraft.
Wait a second. There's like buildings now. The outside of buildings.
Since when? Wait, what's on the inside of them?
I haven't seen the outside of a building since we got stuck in the back rooms in the first place.
Right. Are we still there?
What's that noise?
Reminds me of the trenches.
Okay, wait a second, it's fireworks.
Just like the trenches.
Okay, well, it was warm just a few minutes ago. Now it's freezing, and there's fireworks.
Things change quickly in the trenches.
I'm saying it's New Year's.
We had New Year's in the trenches. I don't know what you want from me.
Okay, look, there's more buildings over there. Let's go.
All right.
Like a machine.
We need to get the heck out of here now. But keys in the ignition.
It's getting brighter. We need to hurry.
Turn the keys. You're doing it.
Do the other one.
You try.
That also didn't do anything. Hey everybody, welcome to a very special episode of Unknown. This is our 25th episode special, and today's topic is going to be on the history of life on Earth. Today I have with me
Luke.
And of course, as always, myself, Roman. Today we're going to be talking about evolution and how all the modern animals we know today came to be from the very beginning till present day. I sort of have a passive interest in this stuff, and I've been wanting to do this episode for a long time now. And I know, Luke, you like certain prehistoric animals, but I'd like to introduce you to all of them.
All of them.
So I have extensive notes, and hopefully by the end of the episode, I will introduce you to enough that you can maybe pick some favorites. Maybe a favorite from each group, maybe a mammal, maybe a reptile, maybe a fish. We'll see.
Right.
And so this episode is just going to be you journeying through time with us. So, without further ado, let's get started all the way at the beginning. Alright, so first stop on our tour is going to be the Ediacaran period, which is technically before the Paleozoic entirely. So, if you don't know what that means, basically the history of life on Earth can be separated into three major sections: the Paleozoic, the Mesozoic, and the Cenozoic. The Paleozoic is mostly sea life. Life began in the oceans.
Or so they say.
So they say. We don't know exactly how. They think maybe like hydrothermal vents or something like that. And so it's stuff that you may be familiar with, like trilobites and anomalocaris and stuff like that, we'll get to later. And then in the Mesozoic, it's famous for the dinosaurs. It's the age of dinosaurs. And the Cenozoic is stuff like the woolly mammoth during the Ice Age, and us modern humans, because we currently still live in the Cenozoic. Now, those eras, is what you call them, those three eras, are the main ones known to harbor complex life. The Ediacaran period is before that, and we find out that there was in fact life before the Paleozoic. Very simple, very strange, very weird, but still very interesting. The Ediacaran was 635 to 541 million years ago. And then we think that, like I said, life sort of started around maybe hydrothermal vents deep in the ocean.
I don't remember that.
Technically you should. It should come in built in with being a human, because technically we're all descended from that. I think it's called Fuka. First universal common ancestor.
Then what's the Luca?
Last universal common ancestor. So I'm not really too knowledgeable about that's like stuff that far back. So I think it just means like the first universal common ancestor would be like the first living organism on Earth, and the last universal common ancestor would be like the last living organism on the planet that we all share genetics to. Every organism, plant, fungi, animal,
And
human, anything.
including, do viruses count?
You know, I'm not even gonna begin to get into that because it's like debated on whether or not they're even living, right?
Yeah. But Luca is like all bacteria connected to him?
I mean, it was just like some sort of single-celled organism. I don't even know like
What exactly counts as a relative to us and Luca?
Let me put it this way: it's a hypothetical organism. Like it's not like we have a fossil of it or have any record of it. It's just like at some point the first thing to ever exist existed. That's what that is. It's not like some species existed that was called that. But yeah, then like bacteria, algae, and like single-celled plankton started popping up, and that was sort of the most going on for like a long time. But then you started having stuff called the Ediacaran biota popping up, which were little like weird gloop creatures that just sort of slithered around on the ocean floor.
You got a picture?
We really don't even know what they are. As I'm showing Luke, I will insert pictures in the episode for you to see. One of the most famous Ediacaran biota is Dickinsonia, which was just a big flat pancake.
Is that the gloop?
Yep. I mean, they're all kind of gloop. All the animals around that time, they're all kind of gloop. There's Cyclomedusa, which is just like some kind of look like early jellyfish. We don't really know if they could take off the ocean floor yet. It may have just been like stuck there like all life. There was stuff like I'm probably not going to search up all these, but they like Kimberella, sorry, which is just like kind of looked like Dickinsonia, but just had like a little like cross at the top of its. I was gonna say top of its head. I don't know if it had a head. Or like Charnia, which is like borderline a plant. I think some of these we don't even really know, like if
what they were,
if they could have been a plant. Maybe it's very up in the air. People think it's like early jellyfish, or like anemones, which are called cnidarians, or like early soft-bodied relatives or ancestors of arthropods. So like jointed, hard-shelled creatures.
Arthropleura.
And then there's also a chance that they are a completely unique lineage of life that is extinct now, and there's nothing alive today that's like them. And then, so yeah, these are some of the first animals, and also some of the first like trace fossils. Trace fossils are like not necessarily fossils of the animal, but if you see like a burrow or like divots in the ground where they like moved along or like dug or scrounged for food or something like that.
I wonder if they even had DNA.
Yeah, I'm sure they had DNA. Probably a very primitive form of DNA.
Right.
I don't even know how they would like reproduce and share
Yeah,
chromosomes.
they would have to.
It may be like modern jellyfish. Don't they like just disintegrate into a goop on the bottom of the ocean floor and then like reconstitute and are technically immortal?
I believe so.
Okay. But I mean,
hold up. If that's all that jellyfish do, then they would go extinct eventually because animals eat jellyfish. So they have to have some reproductive method that isn't just them being recycled.
I that is true, but
Oh, that one's a Pokemon.
So I know what you're thinking of. Like, what is it, Lily? Is that the Pokemon?
I think so. The like green plant looking thing.
And Cradilly?
Yeah, and Cradilly.
Yeah, those are based off of crinoids, which are similar looking, and we will get to them later. I have some on the list. But yeah, this could have been, like, we don't know what this thing is. We're looking at a Haudia? Haudia.
Hoya.
Hoidia.
Hoya.
Spelling's gonna be here. Also, I should be putting credits to all the paleo artists for any images I showed, because God forbid. Also, some of my artwork's going to be in here, so if it's not labeled, it's probably mine. But yeah, so that's a good overview of the Ediacaran. We don't know much about it. I think a little girl found it. I think a little girl was like walking and she found like a fossil in like a cliffside, and they found out that they're like, oh shit, this is older than anything we've ever found. There's a lot of cute stories like that where the kids just like stumble across fossils.
I know a kid in I want to say Ireland or England found a sword in a lake where like King Arthur's sword is supposed to be. It was just from like it was like a replica from a movie that they shot there, but still, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a good overview of the Ediacaran. Not much going on. We don't really know. Well, there may have been a lot going on, but we don't know. And there may have been life even before it, but we don't know. It's too far back. I guess it's also at this point worth mentioning that like
was it that far back, or was it last Thursday? Last Thursday-ism. Look it up.
There is also the concept that first of all, it's theorized that about 1% of all species to ever exist actually got fossilized. Yeah. So there's probably a lot lost to time that we'll never get to see, unfortunately. And then also, the older fossils get, the higher chance they have of getting just melted back down into the lava of the molten core of the Earth. So stuff this far back is incredibly rare to find, and not only that, but they're like soft organisms. So that stuff doesn't preserve well. Obviously, like bone or like hard shells or something like that, that's going to preserve very well. So that's why this is so elusive, and it continues to be for the next few periods or so.
Now I'm wondering what they taste like, the little jelly creatures.
Well, not like candy, but I think some of the ones in the following periods are going to taste very good.
So at what point did Pokemon start evolving?
So that's going to be in the Holocene epic, because first you need humans for that, and then you need, what's the Pokemon guy's name?
Arceus?
Guy? No, guy, not guy.
Oh.
Reggie Suzume. You need him to be born. You need humans to evolve and him to be born. And then you have Pokemon.
Right.
Yeah, that's how that works.
Mm.
Not whatever else you're implying. So, as you can see, we're still in the middle of the ocean. There was land at this time. This is the Cambrian period, the first period of the Paleozoic, and I will be putting up a little geologic calendar so you know kind of what I mean by all these times, and it's not so confusing.
It's the Cambrian explosion.
Yeah, if not for the dinosaurs, you may have heard of like this time period, because it's pretty famous for some weird critters, and it's one of my favorites. It lasted from around 541 to 485 million years ago. For a while, before we knew about the Ediacaran, we thought this was sort of like the oldest life on Earth. Like Luke was saying, there was a explosion in sort of a cerebral sense, in that there was a big diversification of life. So it was like the first time many of like the modern groups of animals that we know today actually showed up, like true arthropods. So like, you know, your bugs, crustaceans, arachnids. We didn't have them yet specifically, but like they would eventually give rise to those groups. You had your first fish, your first and by extension, sort of your first vertebrates, which are things with backbones. You get your first mollusk, so like clams and stuff, cephalopods. These familiar groups started popping up, but they look just a little alien.
Foot.
Foot?
Cephalopods.
It means foot face.
Mm.
Limb face. Yeah, that's what that means. If you know your Latin, keph or kephla means face, and pod means like limb or foot or like appendage. So that's where that name comes from, because technically the way like a squid or an octopus's body is oriented, it has its limbs on its face. And the back is not its head, it's the body.
Yeah.
So you can have, this is a fun thing about science, you can have a cephalopod of any animal group. You can have a cephalopod human. It just needs to have the arms and legs coming out like where the mouth is, or somewhere on the face.
I took a class where we had to remember all those classifications, like cephalopod and arthropoda, whatever the fuck sponges are. And not sponges. Well, yeah, sponges were there, but also like sea anemones.
So starting with the mollusk category,
right.
we have
mollusks.
We have Hyalitha, which is some weird horned sort of. I mean, the whole thing is a horn, but
it's like a barnacle.
It had a little lid and tentacles coming out of it. It was a very strange sort of mollusk. We also have some of the first arthropods, so ancestors of insect, arachnids, crustaceans. The most famous of which, that I neglected to mention, showed up were the trilobites, which were still very diverse and abundant and super on top of things in the Cambrian, but got even crazier later on. So obviously...
They kind of look like horseshoe crabs.
Yeah, so not related, but sort of an example of convergent evolution, which is when two different animals sort of evolve to look the same because they do the same thing in the environment they live in. So this picture reminds me, this is from an article. They recently this year just found a mummified, essentially, trilobite, because it was encapsulated in like volcanic ash. It like quickly got solidified in like lava flow. So it got like preserved. And so for the first time, we got to really see what like the underside of trilobites look like. Like it looks like that. How you would expect it to look like, but
so what I'm hearing is there's a possibility for Cambrian Park. Is that like Jurassic Park?
I don't know if any of the DNA was preserved. Listen, I'm all for it as much as you because the Cambrian's one of my favorite periods, but I don't know how much
it'd be more of an aquarium.
Yeah. So pretty average ones like Paradoxides. When you imagine a trilobite, that's what it looks like. And then eventually, I don't know if this is all in the Cambrian, I don't think so, but there came to be 25,000 known species. That's why you can buy trilobite fossils just offline, because there's so many. That's species, not specimens found, species. Because you can have more than one fossil of the same species, which is that's insane. That's an insane number.
I want to know what they evolved into.
Well, unfortunately, they were just sort of big chillin' for the entire Paleozoic, and then they just got conked out. Yeah. We'll get to that later.
Could you imagine if they survived though?
Yeah.
What they would be today.
There's some interesting ones in the next period. So the next major group of arthropods I want to talk about are the radiodonts. So this features the famous Anomalocaris and several others that are also going to like the next few periods. Radiodont, the name means like radio in terms of radial, so circle, and then dont, you'll see that in a lot of animals' names, and that means like teeth. So you think like orthodontist. It's like, so it's circle teeth, because jaws had not evolved yet. That's important to know.
Right.
But these radiodonts were some of the first hunters ever, the first predators. And so they needed to eat, other critters, most likely like Cambrian worms and stuff. And so they just had a circle, like bony mouth thing on the other side of their body that they just kind of like used their two front appendages to sort of just swap things into. Very inefficient way of eating, but they work with what they got.
And then I said, a shrimp fried this rice?
Speaking of shrimp, so there were several other
Anomalocaris.
several other radiodonts. Anomalocaris was one of them. I'm trying to find a place where there's like they're all kind of shinning off. I'll just pull up a few. There's some that are more like rounder and swart looking, like Herdia.
Oh, I like that guy.
A funny looking one, and Petoya. Sorry, I'm looking these up in real time. This was it. So they made like a cool life model of what it may have looked like with its sort of
that one.
Just for future editing Roman to know what I have to put in the video now, Luke found a anime girl Gajinka of Petoya. Maybe, you know, at least I'm glad we can bridge our interests. Let's see. And then I believe this one has some interesting, like, great appendages. Like, that's what you call the limb on the front of their body is the great appendage. You see that pop up in a bunch of different animals. Amplectobellua. And it has some more interesting little grabby bits in the front. But yeah, I love radiodonts. They're some of my favorite like extinct group of animals ever. I love them so much. They're so weird, and there's nothing like them alive today. Just look like weird shrimp. Anomalocaris.
So there are things like them today. Shrimp.
I mean, that's the closest, but does that look like a shrimp to you?
Yes.
There's something alive today that I think is closer, called it's like a mitten lobster, and it's like flat and kind of has little fuzzy bits and stuff that kind of looks like the little fins on either side that they use to propel themselves with. So, here, I can actually pull that up here for you. Lobster. See? That looks pretty Cambrian, I'd say so. Especially like this angle right here.
Very bug-like.
Yeah. And then, moving on, there's some other kind of arthropods, kind of, I think so. I think it's arthropod. There's Opabinia, which you may have seen. That's not right.
I thought you were typing in Obama.
Opabinia?
Yeah.
Opabinia had 5 eyes for some reason. There's really not a lot of known relatives to it that we can sort of trace why that evolved or where it came from. There's some other ones. I don't know if they were in the Cambrian or the following period of the Utah Aurora. That was another one. That's not a nose, that's mouth at the end of it.
It's even worse.
Yeah. And then
it's like
there was
elephant.
Habelia.
Elephant.
Habelia was like every crustacean and insect you've ever seen combined into one being. These are not radiodonts, by the way.
That one's my favorite.
These are just just other Cambrian arthropods. I don't know necessarily what larger group they.
Does it have claws, pincers?
They just have these little like paddles on them. Here's like a breakdown of their biology.
If it had claws, that would make it even cooler.
And then this is one of my favorites, and it looks a lot bigger than it actually was. I think it was just a few inches, but let's see. Valhuticaris, which just looks like an emo kid with like a hoodie.
No, it looks like Dumbo, the elephant.
And I think they said this may have been the arthropod with the most segments ever. Like arthropods are known for having their segmented bodies. This may be like the most ever found.
Huh.
One of my favorite little guys. Love him.
You know what? He reminds me of that one fossil Pokemon, the blue one with the droopy beard thing.
Is it a newer one?
Yeah.
I don't think
Sword
I
and
know
Shield.
That,
No.
I didn't pay attention to the new games. Then we have more echinoderms, which they think may have popped up in the Ediacaran. But like, so those are like ancestors to, you know, modern starfish and stuff like that.
And the sea dollars.
So I'm actually going to start copying and pasting these names out of my notes because they are a little obnoxious to type. Sea dollars, thank you for bringing that up. But some of them weren't necessarily radially symmetric, meaning like a sand dollar would be like, you can slice it in half in different ways, and it's symmetrical radially.
Those sand dollars you find on the beach, that's just the skeleton of what's left. So if you ever see one with this like muck on it, do not scrape it away. That's just its skin.
Yeah. So these are some weird ones. There's like Stenocystis.
I like that one. That looks like a computer mouse.
That comes later. Luke is looking at Rhinocystis. It does look kind of like a facehugger. That's kind of creepy.
Or like a taser.
Yeah.
With a tail.
Yeah. Did I put this? What is a Malazoa? Oh, I know what this one is. It is like I just picked it as like, this is a nonsense creature. This looks like a plumbus.
That's not real. I
don't know what that thing is.
That's somebody's trolling.
Oh, this is one of my favorites. This one's bigger, I think. Helicocystis. Yeah, it was just like this big spiral thing that just sort of like clamped to the ground, and it had these little like openings at different points in it.
That looks like a barnacle.
I think they were like big though. I don't know. This image makes it look like they're big. It looks like something out of Subnautica. I feel like that would be like in the game Subnautica.
You made out a Subnautica-like game set during the Cambrian explosion. You're like a time traveler that crashed it.
I play that, and I think honestly a lot of the creature design for Subnautica was from like early Cambrian stuff. Also, sort of in the Cambrian, we see some of the first fish, very primitive. They almost look closer to worms. And I said that they're also kind of vertebrates, but there wasn't like a full like bony spine in any of these creatures. It was what was called a notochord, which is just basically like a little line inside the body that kind of functions like a spine.
I remember the notochord.
Yeah. So these are some of the first creatures. Notochords? I can't say that.
Isn't there one classification that still has their notochord? It like never developed into what we have currently.
I'm not aware of that actually. I'm looking up a different species though.
No, I have my own. I'm gonna.
Hycoichthyes was another one, another type of primitive fish. I think it looks more fish-like than Pikaia. I don't think Pikaia looks fish-like at all. And then also we see some of the first conodonts, which I think are ancestors to modern day like hagfish, so the like slimy eel-looking things. And the ones in the Cambrian were very spooky and had weird bulbous eyes and little serrated teeth mouth, and they get even weirder later on. So we'll touch back on them later.
The chordates. No, hold up.
Chordates are just things with spines.
The following organisms retain a post-embryonic notochord. The sturgeons, paddlefish, hagfish, lamprey, lancelet, tadpoles.
That makes sense because I think the conodonts are early ancestors, and they're like hagfish, lamprey ancestors. So that makes sense that you're saying that, yeah. Yeah.
They are invertebrate chordates since they have a notochord.
Moving on to the cephalopods, very, very new. So I only have Plectronoceros, which is just a little cute one. It's kind of like a very primitive cephalopod. I think it kind of looks like Glep from Smiling Friends.
It does.
And yeah, just a very, very early cephalopod. Again, like most things in the Cambrian, they do get kind of crazier, in my opinion, in the following periods. But just, I thought, I wanted to say that they were there, so you knew that they evolved. And then some miscellaneous ones. This may be miscellaneous because scientists don't know where to place them, but it's also miscellaneous because sometimes I get confused and I don't have an official education in paleontology, and so I didn't really know where to put them. I know this one was confusing for quite some time, and you've probably seen this one. It's a very popular one. Hallucigenia.
Hallucinogenic.
Have you seen this one?
No.
So scientists, it's very tiny. It's like 2 centimeters. 2 centimeters. Scientists originally, when they saw this fossil, they didn't even know what side was up, or what side was the front, what side was the back. Literally a nonsense creature. It has these big spikes on what they thought was its legs, but now they know it's just spikes in the back. And then it walked on these little tendrily legs, and then also had 3 sets of little smaller tentacles around its head, and a little circle of like serrated teeth underneath, and 2 little dot eyes. Utter nonsense creature. Does not make any sense. Here's sort of like a diagram on like how they sort of thought it was positioned over time. Very, very nonsense creature.
No, I'm not religious, but this does seem like a lot like someone trying to figure out how things work. It feels like Spore. When you first play Spore for the first time and you create a nonsense creature.
A lot of these Cambrian creators are very spore coded. They're very spore coded.
If you don't know Spore, it's an old computer game where you create a creature and raise it from like a single-celled organism all the way and evolve it all the way to like space-faring creatures.
Yeah. Next up on the list is Nectocaris, which it has the caris suffix to its name, which normally points to shrimp. That generally means shrimp. But I think it kind of looks like a cephalopod. Looks like a squid.
Yeah, it looks like a squid.
So I think paleontologists are also, and also I'm looking at this picture and it says mollusk on here. So I don't know. I think at least at some point in time, scientists were confused where it's placed. You may have to look up what this is categorized under.
Which part is the wait, what's it? It's mollusk?
It says, Nectocaris is a genus of squid-like animal of controversial affinities. So yes, they don't really know what it is.
Okay, but like, go back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It does say mollusk.
But it also says cephalopoda
That's
family.
true. I'm just reading it like a subtitle to a Google
And so
image. I don't know what this is.
that's foot face, correct?
Foot face?
Wait, what am I thinking of?
Oh,
yeah,
cephalopod.
Yeah.
Or face foot.
Yeah, cephalopoda family.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it has. Is that the feet?
It does have the cephalopod body plan, but also, mind you, it could be sort of like a great appendage situation, like the radiobounce.
Let me get to where I'm going. So those to the feet or that part?
Because I wouldn't say feet, limbs. Yes, these are limbs.
Yes, but it's foot face.
Okay, sure.
I'm just saying that's a featherless biped.
We're not there yet. They haven't evolved yet. Also, looking at the actual fossil of it makes it even more confusing because it looks like it has little stripy bits.
It does.
So I don't know. All right, next up is this one's easier to spell. Wallachia.
I love it.
I think
It's Pukamuku.
I think they were saying this may also be like an early echinoderm, like sand dollar, sea star situation.
Right.
It does look like a sea urchin as well, like the Pokemon. I don't think it is. I think it's another example of convergent evolution.
I'm not sure Pukamuku is a sea urchin.
I thought it was. Oh no, it's a sea cucumber because there's its guts. That's what it is. You're right. This is another one of my favorite ones because it's sort of just like a living magic carpet. This is Timberbestia, and it just was sort of like a flat worm-like creature with a mouth on the underside and 2 like the front appendages like the Nectocarus.
So it's like a man ray or a stingray.
Yeah, it's just sort of like a flat little two-tendril little critter that just glided through the water. I don't think it was that big either. I think this is sort of the fossil for it here.
I kissed the stingray.
So, like we were saying... Sorry, you kissed a stingray?
Yes, on vacation.
Skates and rays have not evolved yet either yet. We're not there yet.
We went on this like little thing where they take us out into like open waters, and we get into this like shallow area with a bunch of stingrays, and the guide like helps the stingrays like crawl on your back or hold them up for you so you can kiss them. It's supposed to be good luck. I didn't want to do it. I was forced to by my parents.
Okay, so now we're finally at crinoids. Crinoids have evolved. And by the way, I'm not listing these species in order in which they evolved. I'm just sort of saying generally here are Cambrian animals that existed at some point. Crinoids are sort of these like anemone-looking structures, but they're sort of separate from that. They're kind of weird to me.
Are they in the same family as starfish?
I believe they're echinoderms.
Look up, echinoderms.
Yes, so in the same sort of general family as like sea stars and stuff.
Look up the like feathers starfish.
Yes, and closely related to modern feather stars, which are very interesting creatures, and they can kind of like propel themselves through the water, right? Kind of bouncing with their limbs like that, right?
That's the same creature from...
Oh! To be honest, I thought crocodiles were extinct. I guess they're still alive in the form of feather stars.
Because that's like identical to the image. Before.
Yeah. And you also said this looked like that one Ediacaran animal. Hawata? Whatever it was. Not a crinoid though.
Are you talking about the Pokemon?
The one that you thought looked like, Credilli.
Credilli.
This is what Credilli is actually based off of. And then, so that wasn't a specific species. There's tons of crinoids. I'm not going to get into all of them. But there were also graptolites, which are like little colonial organisms that sort of link together.
I think colonial organisms are the coolest, like the Manowar.
Yeah. And then these were tiny little things that grouped together. And then also the first sponges appear during the Cambrian. So that is the major groups. I'm not really focusing too much on plants because that's more of an elusive thing, especially to me. Like I said at the beginning, there was like algae and stuff floating around, which some of the animals fed off of, and the first hunters. So for the first time, actual animals were being eaten by larger animals. First predation. So yeah, it was the first major burst of life on Earth ever, and it gave rise to some of the modern groups we know today, as we can see. This the echinoderm family is still alive and thriving to today. Cephalopods, arthropods, they're all still here. So the Cambrian is very fun. I love all the strange little critters. It's not my favorite period. That will be coming up next. But yeah,
is it with the pterosaurs? The pterosaurs?
We have so far until we get to the pterosaurs. I do
you
like
said
them.
it was your favorite.
I do like them though, again.
What's your favorite?
You'll see. It's a secret. In about like 5 minutes from now. But I'm curious. Do you have a particular favorite out of the Cambrian ones so far? Or Ediacaran, I guess, but they're little glue monsters.
Okay, well, of the glue monsters, the second one that kind of looked like a jellyfish.
Cyclomedusa?
Yeah, that one was my favorite of the jellyfish things.
I think those are, what do we say, Nidarians is what they're called?
I liked that one critter that was like a nonsense critter.
Hallucigenia?
The one, yeah, with all the spikes.
You also liked Habelio, right?
Which one's Habelio?
The weird crustacean looking thing.
Oh yeah. I also like that one. And the one bug, one creature that looked like all the bugs put together, you said?
I thought I said that about Habelio.
Might have been that one.
Whatever. Okay. All right, and that is it for the Cambrian. Alright, so the next period, immediately preceding the Cambrian period, is the Ordovician period, which lasted from 485 to 443 million years ago, roughly. And this is the first period where I'm going to bother splitting up the invertebrates from the vertebrates, because those are like the two like main big branches of the animal kingdom that's worth separating. So obviously, creatures without backbones, and creatures with backbones, because now notochords have evolved into backbones. We'll get more into that later. So in the invertebrate category, I'm going to start with the arthropods. Now, I think I teased this in the Cambrian section. This is the time for the trilobites to really flourish. You have so many different species.
At least 25,000.
Like I said in last period, 25,000. So the biggest one, we'll start with him, that we know of, Isotelus rex, which was...
The biggest?
Yes. Which, here's a good size comparison next to your average umbrella. That's him there.
How heavy is he?
I don't know, obviously. Several kilograms.
Oh, wow. How specific?
Weighed probably around 4.5 kilograms.
Thank you. That's what we're looking for.
Here. Okay, and there were also... They like evolved a lot of different structures to help them with different niches. So some got up off the ground and started swimming through the water. Some had like these little like shovel nose mouth things. Some just had tons of spines all over them, maybe for defense or like sexual display. And some even had like eye stalks, like little. I think it's Asaphus is the one with eye stalks, and Acidaspis is the one with crazy like different spikes and it's like pins all over it.
Right.
Also, they started protecting themselves by doing like the pill bug thing, where they curl up into a little ball.
I haven't seen those in a while.
And for a while, they thought it was like they were the primary prey of the radiodons, especially Nomicars. But they did some tests to sort of like measure the strength of like the Nomicars' appendages, and also the shell. And they think that they were far too tough to be able to be broken into. So think that like radiodonts, like Nomicars, may have eaten stuff like just small worms or stuff, burrowing worms, like soft-bodied organisms instead of like hard shell trilobites.
So, do you think the reason why there's so many different species of trilobite is that they didn't have a predator to cut them down?
That may just be the case, and also it's generally when you have a smaller body plan like this.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, they can range from anywhere from like in between like penny-sized to like what you've seen with Isotelus rex. So it's like a large variety. So like kind of modern bugs. They, will breed a lot and have a lot of babies, but live shorter lives and have that sort of reproductive structure. But there's just an endless amount of species with every different shape you could imagine. And they probably came in cool colors too.
Are you going to become a paleontologist specifically for trilobites?
I think I like radiodonts a bit more. The trilobites are there. Trilobites they're up there. Speaking of radiodonts, moving to them next. I think this is my favorite animal ever.
Uh-huh.
It is called a Gyrocassus, and I believe I've shown you it before, but I will pull it up again. And it is a giant radiodont that people call a bug whale because it looks like if I were a whale. But it is in fact a radiodont arthropod.
Small.
I mean, there's your size comparison.
Right.
So fairly large. It's kind of like the length of a surfboard. It's fairly big.
Big for a bug.
Well, not a bug, but
Bug whale.
arthropod. And there were other similar types of like similar body plan to Agaricasses. There was like I guess not. There are other ones though. I can put them here. But so like how the trilobites were in the Cambrian, but their time to shine was the Ordovician, the radiodonts' time to shine was the Cambrian, but were also present in the Ordovician. So they were kind of on their way out of popularity at that point in time. And some heinous other arthropods are about to come later. But anyway, oh, that's right, I do mention them in this period because, again, it's another situation where they have evolved in the Ordovician, but it's their time to shine in the next, is the Eurypterids, which are the sea scorpions. So they are also ranging in size, but leaning very large, are the sea scorpions. So not scorpions, but they are scorpion looking and live in the sea. One of the first ones was Pentacopterus. Had these like grasping arm things, not necessarily claws yet.
Grippers.
Yeah, but just sort of like spiked appendages that it used to sort of just kind of herd prey into its mouth.
Not quite hands, but like, would you call them paws? Sweepers?
I don't know. They're not the great appendage in the way that an Alligators has. There's something else.
Claspers. Mittens.
But you also have, what are some other ones? Megaloraptus. This is some like life reconstruction somebody made to make it look realistic, and a smaller one, but still like that is terrifying. I would freak out.
He can do something really, really funny. He could like make it submersible and like a little underwater submarine toy.
So,
and have it and scare like a bunch of divers or scuba divers.
I would freak out with this.
Snorkelers.
It's like such a perfect size. It'd be so scary.
It's like a big lobster, except it doesn't look like a lobster, more like a scorpion.
Yeah, it didn't have the actual pinchy bits of like modern crustaceans.
Right.
But yeah, so these guys sort of started popping off in the Ordovician, but they come later. Some crazier ones come later. And then leaving arthropods and going to cephalopods, I wanted to talk about another one of my favorite species. The Ordovician is full of some of my favorite animals. Again, I think I've showed you this one before a few times, but Camaraceras is a giant orthocone cephalopod. Orthocone just being the
shape of the shell.
Yeah. And so there were regular orthocones as well that were still pretty big for cephalopods, but they were like relatively smaller. The size of this thing and even appearance is debated because, like I mentioned earlier, really only the hard shell has been preserved. So what its face looked like and arms looked like is pretty much
guesswork.
Yeah. So you're probably seeing my artwork of it on screen, and I just took inspiration from the giant squid that we have today because, that's most likely.
It would make a hermit crab very happy to have that shell.
I suppose like a few hermit crabs to move that thing, because this thing is like school bus size. But this is some of my favorite animals, and I think that they were also like. They were debating whether or not to call it Endoceras or Camaraceras, but now they decided that they're two separate species. I don't know. Anyway, also during this period, coral evolves.
Yay, coral. Guy, anything to say about that?
No particular species, but coral is there now, and reefs start to become a thing. There's going to be some things where I just say, these things are here now, not specific species. And then also crinoids, like we talked earlier, are just diversifying more. So we have more weird alien-looking crinoids. All right, so that is it for the Ordovician invertebrates. There's so many, I could literally yap for forever, but who knows how long this video is going to be. So moving on to the vertebrates, a new type of fish evolves called the ostracoderms.
Is that they develop jaws?
So, well, they developed jaws eventually. These don't have jaws yet, but they were the precursors. So yeah.
Right.
So they were jawless, but they had scoots on them, so little like armor plating to help protect them. No fins, just like a little like back tail thing. And then another pretty famous one that even if you're not familiar with paleontology, you may know this creature because of some memes floating around the internet. Sacabambaspis was in fact an ostracoderm. Little guy. They don't have jaws, so their mouth is just sort of an opening on the front of their face with two little headlight eyes on either side. Very cute. And there were several like that sort of developed, different shapes. Their scoots sometimes made little points, for defense.
When does the dunkel develop?
Luke's jumping ahead, y'all. Luke's jumping ahead. Soon, in the Paleozoic, I'll say that.
And what about the fish that the relicanth is based off of?
We still have those. You're asking when it evolved?
Yeah.
I don't know when that evolved, but I know lobed fin fishes also come in and around the same time, roughly.
Yeah.
So, same time as Dunkelosseus, not this. We will get to the dunk, though.
The dunk.
And then, so just like, simple fish body plan without any fins or stuff like that. And those were the ostracoderms. And then also, I mentioned the conodonts last time, which were just evolving. Now they've also sort of diversified into possibly some of the first venomous animals, actually. Venom probably evolved for the first time.
That's cool.
And one is a particularly heinous species. It's Pandarus.
Are those teeth?
So, yes. So, I think newer scientific knowledge thinks that it may be positioned more in the mouth than as it is depicted in this reconstruction. But, which I believe this is by paleoartist Prehistorica, and he is fantastic. I'll try to link some of my favorite paleoartists in the description, by the way. But, so very, very strange, like ancestor to hagfish, lamprey sort of situation. And by the way, I just sort of offhandedly said paleoart. If it doesn't already come together, paleoart is art of paleontology. So all these wonderful pictures that we have of these animals, we would not have without artists to design them. And there are several artists that I follow and that I really enjoy that bring these creatures to life.
Yeah.
Because otherwise all we have is like skids in pieces of rocks. All right, so sadly, the Ordovician, the end of the Ordovician, brings us to our first mass extinction that the Earth has faced. So what happened was that there was a global cooling event, and I think it's theorized what caused that was the plants maybe moving to land, absorbing all the nitrogen in the atmosphere as they grew and prospered. Which, when you do that, it gets colder, and then over time, all the animals. It happened at a slow enough pace that all the animals could sort of adapt to it, or at least move to deeper water, warmer water, and then immediately hit with a global warming after that, and all the animals that adapted for the colder climate, they got knocked out hard. So not the most deadly extinction, but one of the 5 big ones across all of the history of life. So it is still a big deal. So essentially, global cooling, global warming, and the animals just couldn't keep up with it anymore.
Yeah, so they just stole all the nitrogen.
The plants.
Yeah.
It's theorized. And that brings us to the end of the Ordovician period, and probably my favorite period of the entire history of life.
process of converting nitrogen gas, N2, from the atmosphere into nitrogen compounds.
That's a good thing.
It's necessary for plants to draw in nitrogen so that they can grow. It is mostly coming from the soil currently, which we use fertilizer to help provide for them. With this new organelle developing, plants will be able to make their own nitrogen.
I wasn't really talking
Well,
about that.
not make their own nitrogen, but provide it. I'm not sure if y'all caught while I was looking up, but nitroplasts are like, I'm, again, not a scientist, do your own research. But if I'm reading it correctly, it's a new organelle developing to provide plants. Well, it's gonna help plants produce nitrogen for them to absorb. And the nitrogen already exists. They aren't making nitrogen. They're just converting it into a usable form.
Listen, Luke is an ecology major, so if you have stuff like that to say, jump in the episode. I don't want to be word vomiting the whole time, so please interrupt me. But anyway,
I am that is my major. However, while I did great in organic chemistry, I am failing. Well, I passed biochemistry, but I did terribly in it. Just barely passed. Biochemistry, fucking terrible. Why was everyone complaining about organic chemistry? Organic chemistry was the fucking best.
organic chemistry, yeah, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Biochemistry is terrible.
As you can see, we have now arrived in the Silurian period, directly preceding the Ordovician period. It lasted from about 443 to 418 million years ago.
Isn't that the name of the lizard people from Doctor Who?
It is. Which lizards weren't a thing yet in this period, so I think it was just like, that's a prehistoric word, we're going to name the aliens after it that look like lizard people. But starting with the invertebrates again, and starting with the arthropods again, and starting with the Eurypterids, who we introduced in the last section, the sea scorpions. So in this period, we saw some of the biggest ones that were to evolve of this group, like Pterygotus. No reason to be that large, in my opinion. I don't understand why something with this body plan needs to be the size of like a car.
How fast can it move?
I mean, fast enough for all the other little critters running around during the Silurian.
So, like, if I was a scuba diver, could I just, like, grab onto it and have it, like, swim away?
Maybe. Who knows? In fact, actually, they probably could be able to tell, because there's, like, some Japanese, like, company that makes robots of them to see how they would move in the water. So we might be able to tell. Anyway, this is a different species, very similar. This is a Acutaramus. And then also the biggest Eurypterid we know to exist.
To have exist?
Yeah. Is Jacalopterus, which is, again, that's just a full car-sized sea scorpion.
That's not car size. I'd say that's like a motorcycle size.
I'm sorry, but regardless, what's the deal? Why? Nothing else was that big. Why you gotta worry about that? Why you gotta be that big? That's frightening. You could literally sit on top of that thing. And they have like...
Think how cool that would be.
They have like,
grippers.
Pincers. Yeah. So unlike the Ordovician Eurypterids, these got pincers. So they were like the terror of the Silurian seas. They were like super predators. The radiodonts are not in the spotlight anymore. I'm not even sure if they're still really around. I think some are, but Eurypterids are definitely where it's at this point in time. Some other miscellaneous arthropods that I don't really know what group they really fit into is Anictozoon. It was another one of those weird animals where scientists didn't even know what side was up.
Do they still know? Because that doesn't look right.
It doesn't really, no. Yeah, it's very confusing. Got a big, like, singular compound eye in the front. Oh, this is another one.
Kind of looks like those jelly walkers
Yeah.
from the.
Some of Wayne Barlow's alien designs from his in one of his art book about aliens, but used as a alien design in the Discovery Channel documentary Alien Planet.
These like giant skyscraper-sized creatures that walk across this like a jelly sea.
Another weird arthropod is Aquilonifer spinosus, which means kite bearer, because it tugged its young along on little strings along the ocean floor.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that one's my favorite.
Really? That's unexpected. But good. I'm glad you're finding favorites. And then there were just like, I don't know, really the entire Paleozoic so far, there was so many just little shrimp things. So.
Oh no, that's fucking kick-ass. I love that.
This is called Thylacaries.
Well, not that one. But like that one's cool.
This species actually comes later. We'll get to him. But I believe Thylacaries is the group that has evolved in this, and they're just a selection of weird shrimp-looking.
Whatever section he's part of, that's my favorite one from that section.
Great. I feel like you're going to change your mind on that, but alright. Okay, where do we leave off? So moving on to the cephalopods. Again, they're big chillin'. I feel like their time to shine was really in Ordovician until later. There's I'm not even about looking them up, but it's a smaller like orthocone cephalopod called Temperoceras. It's just like a smaller version of the giant orthocones we were looking at in the last period. And then myriapods, like millipedes. They're different, but like millipedes, started appearing. And actually, Pneumodesmus pneumoni may have been the first invertebrate on land.
Shelby.
It looks like your average myriapod. Millipede-like myriapod, I think it is. Yeah, well, just a little guy.
Huh.
Yeah, and some of the first animal life on land.
I get distracted. This is my bear friend. The bear. What are you looking up?
Salicina Cthulhu. We're now into echinoderms. It's back to like the ancient sea star relatives. And obviously, this horrible tentacle monster is going to be named after Cthulhu.
Huh.
Yeah. Actually, what is this? This looks kind of crazy. I don't know if
That's not the only crazy thing on your screen. Damn.
What?
Okay, hit the X.
Whoa! Guys, there's like redacted images on here. I searched up the species name and there's like adult content on here. What? We're gonna swiftly move on. Humans haven't evolved yet.
That's not
right. Okay, Cyphercrinus. Okay, so yeah, just like big, long strand-like crinoids. Just possibly like floated on the water like this. This little ball just could have sort of floated around like that.
well, like man-o-wars.
Crinoids continue to diversify. Okay, so moving on to the vertebrates, we have the first jaws, like you were saying. So it's that.
I'm sorry about that. My phone needs charging, but his computer keeps turning off.
The USB outlets in the time machine are a little funky.
Yeah.
There's some seawater in them now, sorry. Yeah, vertebrates. So, like we were saying earlier, the ostracoderms have those scutes, armored plates, and they have gills, and it's gill arches which eventually evolve into the jaw form. It's those arches sort of, right there that allow them to have a, opening mouth. And that creates a group called the placoderms, which are bony fish. And some of the first are Intelognathus, which is kind of like shark-like. Yeah, kind of like a shark-like fish. But you can tell his jaw is kind of funky looking because
I can already see the dunkel in them.
they're still learning. Yes, sorry. There's a lot of separations here. So, to refresh, the ostracoderms are able to form jaws.
Mm-hmm.
They continue to evolve with jaws into placoderms, which not only have jaws, but they also have stronger armor plating, especially around the head. And the placoderms have two major groups that they split into. So the bony fish and guys, there's a lot of separations here. Bear with me. The bony fish, they split into ray fin fish, and lobe fin fish.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the fish we would know today are ray finned, like your average goldfish, a betta fish, are ray finned. Lobe fin fishes are like your coelacanth you were talking about earlier, where there's like their limbs are more so like fleshy lobes than they are like fish fins in the traditional sense. And later that gives rise to the tetrapod form, so 4 limbs and the ability to eventually get out of the water and onto land.
Dang.
So back to the ray fin though, yeah, ancestors of your modern fish like goldfish or even blobfish. And then we're gonna look up this thing because that is really hard to type up. Early, simple, that's such a fish. It's definitely a fish, y'all. Early ray fin fish. And then like a mastax, which I believe is kind of like a shark form of the early lobe fin fishes. Interesting little guy.
Barracuda.
Definitely a fish. Not a barracuda.
No. He looks like one.
So yeah, my notes were just confusing me. So to state it again, placoderms, the armored-jawed fish, split into bony fish and cartilaginous fish. The bony fish split into the ray fin fish, and the lobe fin fish. So back to the cartilaginous fish, also called the chondrichthyes. They are forming 2 groups called the holocephalans, which are rat fish, like the chimera, if you know about that lives sort of deep at the bottom of the ocean. And sort of a prehistoric example of that is Melodysheep, which I will search that up. That is
a bug.
Not that. That's a bug. I think I spelled it wrong. Melodysheep, right? Yes. Little pointy-faced shark-looking thing.
Yeah, kind of like a sawfish.
Sailfish?
No, I said sawfish. S-A-W.
It's not like a sawfish, it's like a sailfish.
But its nose looks like a saw. I dropped the bear.
That goddamn bear.
It's the bear necessities.
Yeah, so that's the holocephalans, like Melodysheep, and then the elasmobranchs are like your ancestors to sharks, skates, and rays. So they kind of had a common ancestor, like the boaters. So kind of looked like maybe like
Sort of eel-like.
sort of like an eel-like shark almost, kind of like a little slippery shark-looking guy.
I could see that existing.
I forgot I have to convince you that this happened. Wow, that's it. I thought there was more. That's a Slurian, folks.
Rock your body, yeah. Everybody, yeah. Rock your body right. Back streets back, alright.
It's nice to finally see forests and trees again.
Why is it so tall?
It is surprising. This is some of the first forests on planet Earth. And there's like bugs and crap out of the water now, finally. A lot of them.
You're telling me this is where all bugs start?
No, they've been around for a while. Just they started in the water like everything else.
But this is their first time getting out of the water.
It's debated. It may have been before this.
So what you're telling me is I can stop them now.
We're gonna go this way.
You better show me the fucking dunkel.
All right, so next up, preceding the Silurian is the Devonian period, which is kind of known as like the age of the fish. The fish are really popping off during this time, really diversifying, becoming very interesting, more recognizable modern forms during this time. It was about 419 to 358 million years ago. And also, like I said earlier, the plants are sort of making their way onto land, so we start to see some of the first forests and stuff like that, like major groups of larger plants on the land. Gymnosperms, for that reason, evolved for the first time during this period. Moving on to the gymnosperms, you want me to look that up?
Yeah, I remember that word. It has plants. Is it about seeds?
It's like includes conifers, right? I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it's either about like
Seed producing vascular plant
Seed
seeds are
producing.
not enclosed within any ovary or fruit. So,
yeah, that's what I thought it was.
conifers, cycads, ginkgos, and nedophytes.
I took a botany class. I like
Well,
that
you
class.
should jump into some plant facts because I did not write much stuff
Oh.
about plants or fungi.
I don't know ancient plant facts. I know redwood trees are a type of cypress. Spanish moss is a type of pineapple. Morning glories are a type of yam.
Starting with the invertebrates of the animals, and also starting with the arthropods within invertebrates. I think I've already showed you this one. It's got a really funny name. I don't think you pronounce it this way, but this is a mime taster.
I remember that guy.
Yeah. Utterly heinous creature. No need for that many spikes.
You never have so many spikes.
And I believe there was a similar looking ancestor to it in the Cambrian called Morella that I don't know if I mentioned or not, but it was sort of like it belonged in the same group as Mime Taster. I think you pronounce it Mimeunister, but that's not better. That's still very silly. You can do better than that, paleontologist. And then this is one of my favorites. Another nightmare creature, Paleoicipus.
Looks like it wants to hug you.
This is freaky. These like crazy colors. I don't even know what this is. It looks like a sea spider with like a.
Wood.
We found more Paleogajinka, y'all. We can't get into this right now.
It's on DeviantArt.
I'm gonna put some in the episode right now. Yeah, so those are some various arthropods.
Roman, is this why you're trying to become a paleontologist? Paleontologist?
So we're gonna do Paleogajinka.
Yeah. Okay.
What?
So, they have animes about Gajinkifying a lot of things, from battleships to countries. You could pave the way for new educational.
There's so many animals. I could do it so much. You know, no joke. I was thinking about, because I did sort of like you may have seen on the channel, I did a Epochtober, however you want to say it, like a paleo art challenge. I didn't finish it, but I plan to. But next year I was thinking, well, what can I do next year for another like month-long challenge? And I was thinking about doing some anthropomorphic prehistoric animals. I'll see. I don't know. No guarantees, people. Don't get too excited. Okay. We simply have to move on. So enough of the arthropods. We're going to move back to still in the arthropods. So we have more eurypterids. Sorry, I'm being silly. I wrote Jacalopterus twice. Jacalopterus was in the last one, right?
Yeah.
Let me double check that. I don't want to give you wrong information. Jacalopterus. And then there's a useful tool. This is a great opportunity to say, I know Wikipedia isn't like the best source out there, but on Wikipedia for extinct species, there is a there is a simple little bar at the top of, if the species is popular enough, that just sort of gives like the window of time in which the species existed. And it's very helpful to just at a quick glance see, oh, it's alive during this time, blah, blah, blah. And so I was actually wrong. I take back what I said about Jacalopterus. Not in the Silurian. It did not evolve into the Devonian. So it's here with us now, unfortunately, the giant car-sized Eurypterid sea scorpion. The largest ever.
Yes, I'm listening. I'm sorry. I had.
It's 400 million years ago, and we're sitting in a time machine. You're on your phone.
I had to text someone. Whatever.
This is unbelievable. Moving to the vertebrates, and first the fish. So there's still some jawless fish. They don't like all have to immediately evolve jaws. Every species is different, blah, blah, blah. One of them is very silly looking. It's another one of my favorite. Tartuostes.
I like him.
Tartuosteus.
Maximum.
It looks like it has turtle energy, but it's definitely not a turtle.
Have turtle energy.
It's kind of like if a turtle crossed with a manta ray.
Yeah,
that's how I would describe it.
How hard is the skin? Is it shell-like?
I mean, I think it's some. Like a lot of these fish did have like at least some armor plating, even the jawless ones. Like you remember the Shrakaderms?
Right.
So I think that it was probably relatively like hard outer shell.
Right, it has like turtle energy, but looks like a manta ray mixed with some type of eel.
It's really interesting. It like doesn't really look like anything else, which is why I like it. But moving on to the jawed fishes, which are obviously much more abundant during this time, you have Hyneria, which is a giant, like a scarily large freshwater fish that could possibly even haul itself up onto land with like its lobe fins, because it was lobe finned, as opposed to ray finned, as we learned in the previous section. It's also Bungartius, which is a really funny name, but kind of like a shark form.
That's a snake.
Kind of like a shark fish looking situation, had like a weird like cleft chin.
We're getting closer and closer to the dunkel.
In a group called the placoderms that we brought up earlier, continue to evolve, continue to diversify, continue to get more robust. We're bony armored fish. Before we get to the dunk, I want to bring up Titanichthys, which is a relative of the Dunkleosteus, but sort of more of just like that just had his mouth agape and was sort of like a filter feeder sort of situation, and not an active predator as opposed to some of the other placoderms. But now we can move to your man, Dunkleosteus.
And dunkel!
One of the most famous prehistoric animals of the Paleozoic, or even all time. You've probably seen its giant armored head fossil, because that is the only part that we have of it. We have no clue what the back half looked like at all. So for a while, we thought it was just a gigantic, like, whale-sized fish. Just ultimate Devonian super predator. Nothing like this has ever existed before. I talked about Hyneria, but that was more of just like a simple freshwater fish that looked very familiar. This was horrible, terrifying monster fish, but only on the head. And a new study came out where they found out that if on basically any fish species, if you measured the distance between the back of the eye socket to the back of the skull, you can pretty much guesstimate the length of the rest of the fish proportionally. So that meant that Dunkleosteus became Schrunkleosteus and sort of looks more in shape to a modern tuna. Still bigger, but just a real squished form.
So
instead of like a giant whale-sized hunter.
Instead of looking like a school bus, it looks like a short bus.
A little minivan. Yeah. Maybe a full car. It did get a little shrunk. The dunk was shrunk. But
they shrunk the dunk.
But we loved him for that. Here's a good before and after image of what they sort of imagined.
Wow.
I'll put that on screen.
That is disappointing.
But even still, super crazy, super predator. Nothing like it has ever existed before. Those jaws, unlike the Anomalocaris struggling to like crack through, stupid trilobites, this thing could destroy any hard shell it could find. Not only was it a strong bite force, it was probably the strongest bite force of any animal to ever exist. Or close to it. Okay. Oh, by the way, that measurement thing is called the orbit opercular length.
And they use that for modern and prehistoric fishes?
Well, we don't have to guess the length of modern fish, but I'm just saying you can apply it to modern fish and it is correct. So we can assume that it would be the case with extinct species as well.
Well, I'm not so sure about that.
Well, they've also done it on extinct species where we have the body and it is correct.
Okay,
So,
see, that's why I
yeah.
asked.
Yeah.
You didn't give me a straight answer.
I apologize. The anoxia in the air is getting to me, I apologize. Moving to a new group called the tetrapods. So, like I sort of hinted
Four
at,
legs.
the lobe-finned fish were able to sort of form limbs out of those lobed fins because they were more bony and thicker and could help support weight and push them out of the water. So this is a big deal. It's the first time vertebrates were coming out of the water, and this would eventually lead to us because we're vertebrates on land and every other vertebrate on land.
Right.
So
He wants you to believe that we used to be fish. If I used to be a fish, where are my gills, Roman?
right here, we talked about it. It's your jaws. Yeah. Okay, so an example of that is Tiktaalik, one of our distant
TikTok?
TikTok.
TikTok.
Yeah. One of the first vertebrates on land. Another similar relative to it was Acanthostega. Yeah, so we're sort of able to they kind of look like bridges between fish and amphibians. Still kind of wet and slimy, still kind of looking like a fish, and we're able to just haul themselves out of the water. And this became a pretty powerful lineage that gave, birth to all, vertebrates on land. That's about all the animal species I want to cover for the Devonian. But the Devonian, like the Ordovician, also ends with the second mass extinction of the main five. I don't think it has a cool name. I think it's just called the Late Devonian Extinction. But essentially it was just widespread ocean anoxia, possibly caused by an overabundance of algae in the water. So just worldwide algal blooms just choking all life in the oceans. And I imagine the reason it wasn't so devastating was because we had animals on land.
Right.
Animals on the land still rely on the water, obviously, but they could at least circumvent that.
Right.
Still incredibly devastating extinction though. There's tons of extinctions. These five are the worst. They even think that all of Earth's oceans were bright green and the atmosphere became a sickly yellow at some point. It could have been that bad.
Cool.
Yeah. So Ordovician, the Earth turns into a snowball and then turns into a lava ball. not loppole, that's exaggerating. Devonian, we have just algae choking it everywhere. All right, and unfortunately, that's the devastating end of the Devonian period.
Sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Everything that's wonderful is what I feel when we're together. Brighter than a lucky penny when you're near. The rain goes, disappears, dear, and I feel so fine just to know that you are mine. My life is sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. That's how this refrain goes. So come on, join in. Everybody, sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Everything that's wonderful is sure to come your way when you're in love to stay. Sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Everything that's wonderful is what I feel when we're together.
What is this shit, Roman?
Admittedly, it's kind of nasty here. It smells bad, but the giant bugs are cool.
I never had this problem with Miss Frizz. I mean,
You think a big dragonfly is going to hurt you? It's fine.
90% success rate, yes. It's just like the fucking trenches here, but with bugs.
Do you hear that? Why is that log moving?
Get me out of here. Nope.
And love is here to stay.
All right, so the next period is going to be the Carboniferous, which you may have heard of. There's some relatively famous, interesting species in that time period. It's known for like its sort of dense tropical like swamps and like maybe not rainforest, but just like really humid, forested like areas, lots of foliage. Generally warm and wet was kind of the vibe in the Carboniferous. It was about 358 to 295 million years ago. Very tropical. And lots of all the oxygen from these plants that have now moved onto land would make sort of the insects in this time period so huge. I say insects, but you know, myriapods and other arthropods and stuff. So starting with the invertebrates as always, and starting with the arthropods, we actually do have the first insects in this period. Not all the species we're going to talk about, but we do have the first the actual true insects, like Meganera, which is that big dragonfly.
That's ooh. Yeah, so for people who don't know, dragonflies are the most successful hunter, I believe. I don't know if it's in all the animal kingdom. Is it?
I mean, they've been around this long and have not changed their body plan at all. So yes, I imagine they're very good hunters.
It's like something crazy, like a 90% success rate whenever they go after an insect.
And they're really great at dodging frogs.
Right. They have great prediction software in them, predicting where their prey is moving.
Yep. And they also had this other griffinfly. Sorry, I don't know if I mentioned it. Instead of dragonflies, they were called griffinflies at the time because they were huge. So there's also Mesotheris enormous, which is just way too big bug. Way too big bug. Bug don't need to be that big. Sorry. Just in my opinion. Not to be discriminatory. They had, both of them had almost like 3 foot long wingspans maybe, which is just, that's like wider than the bedroom door that's not right there.
Right.
Because we're in a swamp. So moving on to the arachnids. I don't know if we have any true spiders yet, but we do have scorpions. Actual scorpions, not the sea scorpions from earlier. These are terrestrial, true scorpions.
So they've been around for a long time.
Yes, and they were also giant, just like their dragonfly brethren.
They've been around for so long, then how come humans are... I mean... They didn't develop large enough intelligence. These they've been around for long.
I mean, just being around long doesn't.
I know it doesn't automatically mean that they become the smartest. I know that, but they had a pretty big head start, and they failed.
I don't need intelligent scorpion people. Just personally, I don't need those to exist. Again, sorry to be discriminatory. Yeah.
I've seen some interesting art that makes me disagree with you.
We should not have brought up the Paleogajinka. That was a mistake.
I'm joking. I haven't.
I don't think he is.
Okay, I have seen one. I think.
Okay, back to the Eurypterids. They're still around. The sea scorpions. Funnily enough, we were just talking about arachnids, and they thought this species of Eurypterid was a spider from the fossil. Megarachnid. They thought it was a spider from the fossil, and so they had reconstructions that kind of look like this, with just like these huge front appendages. And just had it as an oddly shaped, kind of shovel-headed almost spider. Then they found out it was actually an oddly shaped Eurypterid. Sea scorpion. Kind of shrunk and truncated and sort of taken on a odd little handheld vacuum sort of shape, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know, I like these guys. They're weird shaped. I don't mind them, to be honest. That's a very manageable Eurypterid. On the opposite end, still a weird Eurypterid, but huge, was Hibbertopterus, which you look at this and you say, oh, a horseshoe crab.
Alright.
Oh, that's a horseshoe crab. Oh yeah, that's a horseshoe crab. But then you look at its size, and you could ride it like a horse.
Like a horseshoe crab.
Yeah. So there's this paleo artist. I don't know what their name is. They draw like anime girls next to these species for size comparison. But she's like in a bikini. What's that about? What's that about?
What's that one?
This one has like Pterygotus like floating above her, like 2 feet above her.
There's a third one.
Is that Jacolopterus? Which one is that? I don't know. There's a bunch. There's a paleo artist that does this. Can someone explain me why? Why do they do this? I will put their name in kanji down here. I don't know what their English name is, but
I'm assuming that it has a similar reason to the Wonder Bread commissions.
We have to stop. We have to move on from that. So this next one is the star of the show, of the Carboniferous. The one, if you know of a creature from the Carboniferous, you know this animal, most likely. The famous millipede, Arthropleura. The giant millipede that was like as long as a car. So for the longest time we thought these things were blind and just sort of had to feel around and smell and their feelers on the front of their head. But just recently we found out they did in fact have eyes to see. I don't know how good their vision was, but they could skirt around the forest floor over all those dead trees and stuff. And also that's another thing. During the Carboniferous, I think the sort of bacteria that, or whatever breaks down plant material had not evolved yet.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
And so all the crap just started building up and building up and building up, and that's how we have these like swampy, like just disgusting environments in the Carboniferous, because all this plant material just built up. And it was just perfect habitat for all these bugs to sort of make a home for themselves. Okay, and then before we wrap up invertebrates, I want to bring out mollusk and say that giant terrestrial snails were also coming onto mind.
What do you call a snail on the ship? A snailer.
So moving on to the vertebrates, we're going to go ahead and start with the fish. If you remember the Chondrichthyes, the cartilaginous fish, they gave rise to the elasmobranchs, which are the ancestors to like your actually, I don't want to get this messed up. There's the holocephalans and the elasmobranchs. The elasmobranchs are shark, skates, and rays. So that's that. So one of them is Dracopristis, which had a really like robust like head that kind of looked like Godzilla. So it was given the nickname the Godzilla shark for a bit. I think they also thought that it was maybe a cannibal.
Like Godzilla.
I think it kind of does. This kind of looks like it's that shape. I think it does. And they thought it like ate its own young and cannibalized other of its species. And it had these like large reptilian spines that stuck out the back of it for some reason. Now the holocephalans of the Chondrichthyes group, they were the ratfish, so like the chimeras and stuff like that today. So there was right? Let me double check. Yeah. So they had stuff like Adestus, not asbestos. That's not how you spell it. Adestus. So sort of like on the way to Helicoprion, if you know that one. We'll get to him later. But just sort of like scissor jaws sort of situation.
Is that the spine?
Likely to cut up little Paleozoic cephalopods and stuff like that. And another holocephalan was Stephacanthus. So another shark sort of shape, but for whatever reason it had sort of like an ironing board back fin and also a little toupee on the front with like some little spiky bits on it for some reason.
That is strange.
And little trailing bits like sort of like behind the pectoral fins.
Strange shark.
It is a strange shark. There are lots of strange sharks in the Paleozoic. All right, so moving on to the tetrapods that we introduced in the last breed, the Devonian. Obviously, they're just coming out of the water for the first time. They're diversifying, and they created a group called the Temnospondyls, which are sort of like an amphibious sort of group. Ancestors of modern amphibians, probably like Herodosaurus is one, just to give you an idea of what the vertebrates are looking like nowadays. Similar to, Tiktaalik, but with a bit more defined limbs.
Closer to the crocodillas.
Yeah, and also just like some true amphibians for the first time evolved, like Diplocaulus, which you may have seen. It's kind of the boomerang head sort of shape to it.
You know what that reminds me of? That creature from Avatar.
Oh! I know exactly what you're talking about. By the way, like I mentioned earlier, that sort of alien art book I was talking about, Wayne Barlow. Wayne Barlow also designed all the aliens for the Avatar universe. Let's see, was it that? No, it's more of the same thing. It's like a smaller version of this Pandoran hammerhead. I know what Luke is talking about. So that was like, some of the first true amphibians popping up like Diplocaulus, weird head shape. Some species actually found where one side of it was much more elongated than the other. I don't know why. Anyway, also during this time, there's the evolution of the amniotic egg for the first time. So, you don't have to, have your eggs around the water. You can sort of do it in drier places and they're protected in a mesh shell.
You put the water in the egg on the land. Water's in the egg on the land in the egg. Yeah.
I know Bill words when I hear it.
Well, you didn't mention it the first time I referenced it.
Sorry. Okay. So also during the Carboniferous, two major groups form. The first of which is the synapsids, and they're coming from like these reptiles, or early reptilians, early amphibians, early tetrapods, I should say, from the Carboniferous. The first of these two groups are the synapsids, and they are going to be the ancestors to all mammals.
All men.
Yes. They have to get their footing for a little bit. They're a little bit funky at first, but eventually we get to something that resembles a mammal.
You got a picture of one?
I'm gonna bring some up. And then the sauropsids, which are the ancestors to the reptiles. So yeah, I guess let me rephrase that. They did not come from reptiles. Reptiles come from them. They split from the tetrapods of the Carboniferous, which is those four-limbed creatures that made their way out of the water. An example of we'll start with the synapsids. An example of that, the ancestors to mammals, is probably you would not expect it to look like this, but it is Archaeothyres, which just sort of looks like a little lizard critter.
What up, Grandpa?
Yeah. And then also, maybe a more familiar one, you may have heard this one, sort of a cousin to Dimetrodon is Edaphosaurus. Thought it could maybe control its internal body temperature with the big sail on its back. The sun rays hitting it. And so that's a very brief introduction to synapsids. And then moving on to sauropsids, the ancestors to the reptiles. They are also called diapsids. And so the difference also between synapsids and sauropsids. Synapsids have one temporal fenestra behind the eye socket. That is a hole like behind the eye socket that basically every synapsid living today has. Everything that evolved from them. There's always, nature doesn't give things to you straight. There's always some exceptions. And then these sauropsids always have none or two. So synapsids, one temporal fenestra, sauropsids, none or two. Hence the diaspids, two temporal fenestra. And so these sauropsids eventually give rise to not only reptiles, but the dinosaurs, the crocodilian form, which, as we'll come to see, became wildly popular in the following periods, and also pterosaurs and birds. So really, really powerful group. And one of those earliest sauropsids was Hylonomus, which also just fairly lizard-like. So you'll notice towards the beginning of this, they just kind of look like lizards. They both, synapsids and sauropsids, just kind of look like lizards.
So lizards.
So now, see, I'll put miscellaneous species sort of like, this is an arthropod, but it's miscellaneous. I don't really know what family of arthropod it belongs to. I'll put it here. These next ones, we truly don't even know if it is a vertebrate or not, which you have to be a real nasty freak for scientists to not be able to tell if you're vertebrate or not. So you may have seen this one. It's a very interesting little critter called the Tully monster. It had sort of eyes on stalks, but pointing completely in opposite directions from each other, parallel opposite directions to each other. Had little holes on the side of itself, and a big sort of like trunk arm on the front of it. And again, similar to hallucigenia from the Cambrian, this is also just some sort of nonsense creature, in my opinion. I think we have to be missing some information.
We're in a spore simulation.
This is the most spore creature I think our entire itinerary, by the way. I don't think it gets worse than this. So yes, there is the Tully monster. Now I think we know a bit more about this next weirdo on the list. Typhlosis.
Just what?
I truly don't. I think it had like one hole for everything.
So it's like a sea cucumber.
It looks like it. It's an aquatic animal. So is Tully monster. By the way, the scientific name for Tully monster is more classy than Tully monster. It's Tully monstrum.
Of course.
The Carboniferous was very, very strange and probably a scary time to be a human if you were unlucky enough to be transported back there like we are right now. Lots of big bugs. Oh, God forbid. Imagine if they were like mosquitoes. I don't know if they evolved yet. Oh, that'd be terrifying. Like the size of Meganera mosquito, that'd be terrifying. So this is not a like major mass extinction, but at the end of the Carboniferous, there was the Carboniferous rainforest collapse, which basically was just a major shift from the wet and hot climate to a cool and dry climate going into the following period, the Permian.
And if you don't love me now, you'll never love me again. Can't hear you saying you would never break the chain. If you don't love me now, you'll never love me again. Can't hear you saying you'll never break the chain.
Where'd you find that?
I don't know.
This console is pretty fancy. It has sort of like an automat door. And Luke found king cake in it.
This thing knows how to treat me right. It treats me like a king.
I didn't get a piece of pie.
It's not right.
Yeah,
You know, and that's why
18 and above, do whatever the fuck.
That's why I respect Florida. It's illegal. It's illegal to literally get surgery. You know,
How'd you get a pizza?
no,
I don't know.
Tom, it's not right.
Yeah,
You know, and that's why I
18 and above, do whatever the fuck.
That's why I respect Florida. It's illegal. It's illegal to literally get surgery. You know,
How'd you get a pizza?
We are literally 300 million years in the past and we can't escape Aiden Ross. So I think we're in the Permian, which is bad news, but I'll get to that at the end. It's because the ending is bad news.
Right.
Anyway, the Permian period was about 298 to 251 million years ago. It's the last period of the Paleozoic, so that first major chunk of geologic time. And like the other periods, I'm going to start with the invertebrates since they were around before the vertebrates. Brachiopods, this is one of my favorites because it was an obscenely large clam called Shikamaia. No reason for them to be that large. Why do they have to be that large?
They look like giant stingrays, or
Yeah,
almost.
and they're oddly shaped too. It's kind of like a surfboard with like a tumor and a line down the middle.
Do they produce pearls?
No.
That's a shame.
No,
Those
they
would
do
have been like big pearls.
Yeah, it's interesting character design. Okay. Cephalopods are still kicking, like Cuperoceras, which you may think is an ammonite, which is a relatively famous fossil that you may see. They're very common, just like trilobites. They're actually not. They're sort of a predecessor to that kind of convergently evolved to look like your average ammonite.
Right.
But it's kind of like your modern nautiloid almost, the way it's shaped and how people depict its eyes. I think that may be what it's more closely related to.
I believe that's a real animal.
And then the insects, which we previously established had started to evolve. So not just like, arthropods, but true insects. So beetles first showed up, which is crazy because nowadays I think a fourth of all animal species are beetles.
I did know that. I didn't know specifically how many, but I knew that like beetles outnumbered us a lot.
I don't understand how it's possible. There's got to be some that they're considering two different species, but they're actually the same. That cannot be real. A fourth? That seems a little extra in my opinion.
It does.
So swiftly moving to the vertebrates, invertebrates moving to the vertebrates. We're going to start with the fish. So don't have much to say, but there are some very, very interesting sharks in this period. One of them being Orthocanthus.
Sharks always had like crazy designs.
Yeah, they're like more experimental regular fish. But it was essentially like a spiny shark, and it had like this little spine sticking out the back of its like neck area.
It kind of looks like an eel almost.
Yeah. It's very wiggly. But now for one of the most heinous fossils you'll ever see in your goddamn life, Helicoprion.
I remember this guy.
Helicoprion. The buzzsaw shark. We got there. So paleontologists found like this tooth whorl fossil, and they're like, how, in what way, shape, or manner would this ever attach to a living creature? But sure enough, it's sort of like nestled into the bottom jaw of this shark, and they think it just sort of like grew as new teeth formed as the shark aged.
Right.
But it's like, how is that more efficient than just letting the teeth fall out and new one coming into its place?
Well, maybe it has a hoarding problem.
Because modern sharks do that too, where it's not like a spiral, but it's rows that get replaced over time, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how that seems efficient.
Maybe it like lashes out like a whip and hits the enemy fish.
Yeah, and like you briefly said about it may... Sorry, I was thinking hard about something else. It took me a hot second to digest what you were saying. Hey, they're not alive anymore. So who's to say they didn't do that? We don't know.
I'm just gonna start making shit up about extinct animals because nobody can prove me wrong.
No, I mean, that is the thing in paleo art. Like, sometimes it's good to just make a wild guess because we literally don't know. Anyway, moving on to an exceedingly normal creature as opposed to the last one. Amphibians are being very amphibian-y. This is the most amphibian-looking creature you've ever seen in your entire life. This is Ariops.
Big chungo.
And I believe... so it still had something called a lateral line, which is something that fish have, because obviously amphibians evolve from fish. Something that fish have to sort of detect like different like pressure differences in water, or like just movement in water. It's sort of a line that runs along the side of the body. So they think this was a more aquatic than terrestrial amphibian, if anything, because it still had that. There was also Prionosuchus, which was, at first glance you would think is some sort of crocodile, but it's actually an amphibian that convergently evolved to have that sort of body plan. Hence the ending of the name being suchus, which you'll see that in a lot of like animals, regardless of if they're actually crocodiles or not, have that if they look like them. It sort of means like that body plan. And then also Kermitops, which, given its name, you may think it was a frog, but it's in fact a salamander, and its skull bears a striking resemblance to the famous green Muppet.
I mean, I don't see it, but...
Bit of a refresher, if you remember, the synapsids and the sauropsids.
You may continue.
I thought you were conjuring it in your brain. You're like, I do remember. It just left. Synapsids and sauropsids. They evolved from a common tetrapod ancestor that came out of the water. Is he gonna sneeze again?
No.
Okay.
Tetrapod means four-legged.
Yes.
Unlike a tripod, which means three-legged.
Okay.
Making humans a bipod. So, what is a monopod? I would assume like some type of snail, like a mollusk.
Synapsids and sauropsids. evolved from the tetrapod ancestor. Synapsids are the evolutionary ancestors to modern-day mammals, and sauropsids are the evolutionary ancestors to crocodiles, like not crocodiles, dinosaurs, pterosaurs, plenty more. They're a very diverse group.
I love the idea of crocodiles surviving through so many mass extinctions,
Well, I'll say this.
along with sharks.
I'll say this. It wasn't like the modern crocodile survived through all
Right.
mass extinctions.
Right.
But
right.
that body plan, regardless of if the species are actually related, does really well. It's just been around for forever, and it just does pretty good in whatever environment. So, starting with the synapsids of those two major groups, we have Dimetrodon, which probably looks pretty similar to Edaphosaurus, if you remember that from the last period. The big sail-backed reptile-looking thing.
Yeah,
And even though they are the ancestors of mammals, I should say, they're obviously, still
Yeah.
looking like they're finding their footing. They still look like.
I watched The Land Before Time.
There was
okay?
a Dimetrodon in there.
No, I
Okay.
don't remember.
Okay. Because they always get confused for dinosaurs when they're very far from them. And they think the sail on its back was used for temperature regulation, so heat up in the sunlight and cool down in the shade.
Yeah.
And they think also sort of around this time in synapsids is when the split between cold and warm bloodedness happened. Now that's very hard to tell in the fossil record because obviously that doesn't fossilize, but they think so. There was also another one of my favorite creatures. He's very sad. He's very sad.
It looks like they took the creature in spore and just started increasing one part of the body to the max size and decreasing the other to the smallest size.
They, now that I'm looking at it, they kind of did the reverse of what they did to Dunkleosteus. It's literally the opposite here.
Terrestrial too. That's different from aquatic.
Yes. So yeah, essentially just giant, big, beefy, tiny-headed synapsid. Within the synapsids, there were a group of predatory synapsids called therapsids, and a smaller group within them were called the gorgonopsids, such as Gorgonops, Inocencevia, and Soroctonus, which kind of look like early saber-toothed cats. Just it's like if you mixed like a T-Rex with a tiger is the closest I could describe this as. I think maybe they have like little whiskers maybe, or it's sort of like a weird sort of middle ground between mammalian and reptilian life.
Have you seen those enemies from Fallout? Those rat creatures?
Oh yeah, I forget what they're called. Yeah, no, you're right. I see that. And then also within therapsids, but not a gorgonopsid, was Antiosaurus. Antiosaurus is kind of like if they did what they did to the dunk, but to a
Lizard.
to a lizard or to a therapsid. Just crazy build. The gym guy that doesn't do leg day. That's sort of his vibe.
Yeah, it just feels like.
And you would think, yeah.
Just feels like somebody playing Spore, shrinking different.
Yeah, and they think it was actually like a pretty agile,
Hunter?
pursuit-headed hunter predator, which that's not what I'm gathering from its body type. So I don't know how that happened. Another therapsid is Stemanasuchus. That's lots of letters there. And this is a good creature to bring up the concept of shrink wrapping, because as you can see by its skull, who knows what was going on in terms of the soft tissue that was covering it that did not fossilize, and we don't know what it looks like. Because, holy cow, it looks like a demon, but honestly, yeah.
I think it would look similar to a hippo, right?
That's the thing. Hippos have pretty gnarly skulls too, but they're covered in so much blubber that doesn't really show up, and they look like friendly little, they're not that friendly.
They're not.
They
Do
look,
not trust a hippo.
They look like Mudang. This may have looked like Mudang, but we don't know that. All we know is their skulls had these weird, like, fleur-de-lis, like, protrusions for some reason. And they don't know why either. It could have been, like, sexual display or to battle other ones. We really don't know. Another therapsid was Euchamberzia, which may have been the, possibly the first venomous vertebrate, because they found little, like, slits in its, sort of, like, canine area, nasal passage, where they think, like, maybe venom came through. There was also...
What if it was a vampire? It didn't inject stuff, it like, drank it.
Is there another creature that does vampirism at that scale? Is there a creature that's... Like, the only thing I can think of is vampire bat. I'll pull something up here if I do it in research. Next up, another therapsid is Siminia, which people call the Permian primate, because it kind of looks like the first draft of what a monkey eventually turned out to be. Very spooky. I don't like its face. It looks very threatening.
Can you imagine if that's what, like, evolved into us?
That would be a cool experiment. Instead of regular apes or
had-
monkeys, we did a speculative evolution of what if Siminia evolved into the human body form. That'd be spooky. Or just be somebody with, like, real big gums.
Type in fossil fighters. Now type in Duna afterwards. Yeah, it's like a little dinosaur person. See? The Dinorians.
I want to show a spookier one. We're not at dinosaurs yet, y'all. You gotta hold on for dinosaurs. But I do want to pull this up one moment while we're talking about humans if they evolved from different critters. This is like a speculative, like, it's not like real applied science, but like it's like, what if humans evolved from like early ornithischian dinosaurs?
I hate it.
And it's I remember this, like, I had like, oh, here it is. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. I remember I had a pack of like dinosaur playing cards, and they were all normal ass dinosaurs, and then this thing was in it, this card, and I remember being so terrified of it. I don't know where that's at now. Top Trump, yeah. Whoa, this is like pulling a memory out the back of my brain. Why? That's so creepy. Anyway. Last therapsid I want to mention, or last group of therapsids I want to mention, are the cynodonts, which are the ancestors to us and all mammals. One of which is Thernaxodon, and it looks like we're getting to a mammal. It looks like we're approaching mammal, levels of mammal, acceptable levels of mammal.
If I had to put it into words, I'd say it's like somewhere between an otter and a weasel.
Yeah, that's a good combination, yeah. Okay, so wrapping up with the synapsids, moving on to the sauropsids, ancestors to dinosaurs, crocodiles, so on and so forth. I want to go ahead and talk about the paraiosaurs, which are big, sturdy, I believe herbivorous, sort of sauropsids, covered in like these bony knobs all over their head.
I'm looking at the skeleton, and that's great.
A big tank of a creature, yeah. And one of them was Scutosaurus, which looks very similar to the ones that I showed you. And they're called Scutosaurus because they have scutes, like those little bony plates on the exterior themselves. We also have mesosaurs, which are not mosasaurs, but are aquatic reptilian synapsids that were kind of an evolutionary dead end.
That just looks like the crocodile from earlier again.
Oh, if you think this looks like the crocodile from earlier, get ready for a lot more of those. Yeah, I think they just kind of, they kind of started and ended in the Permian. I don't really think they went too far. But first aquatic synapsids, I mean, that's something. Something. And then, not only do we have the first flying synapsids, we have the first swimming synapsids. We have the first gliding synapsids with Routiania, which had like some like membrane spurs that came out in like its armpit area to just sort of glide from tree to tree.
Right.
So I'm actually looking up this trying to find this other gliding synapsid, and this lizard man has popped up once again, and not the dinosaur I was looking, or not the synapsid I was looking for. So we're gonna swiftly move on. You get the point. They're gliding. Okay.
I gotta say, overall, this period has been like absurd but reasonable creatures, right?
Yeah, they're very awkwardly shaped, but not very
Unbelievable.
yes. They kind of look like little like cartoon drawings, but they don't look like fantasy creatures. You know, like
Right.
some dinosaurs do, or some, you know, larger mammals in the Cenozoic. So yes. What was your wording? Absurd but reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the Permian. Except for the ending, which was not reasonable at all. The Permian ended with the Great Dying, the most destructive mass extinction the world has ever faced. Almost everything died, nearly 98% of life. Several huge prosperous branches died and to never come back ever again, such as the sea scorpions, which were like knocking it out of the park for millions upon millions of years, all gone. The acanthodians, which were like the spiny sharks, gone. The trilobites, which were essentially the beetles before the beetles, and the beetles before the beetles before the beetles, and they are just gone. All of them.
Are there like thousands of species of them?
I believe we currently know 25,000 species of trilobites.
I believe that there could be some in like a really deep cave somewhere. Some living trilobite. Although, would they have evolved to stay that shape? Or would they? It'd be like an enclosed environment for them to evolve. I'm not sure how that.
I think we need to get out of here right now, actually. Okay, hold on. Oh my god.
That'd be great.